Welcome to the Deep Dive. You're here because you want the real story, the important stuff, without drowning in news feeds, right?
Exactly. Think of this as your shortcut.
Today, we're getting into universal basic income, UBI. It's everywhere in discussions lately.
Yeah, we've gathered the latest studies, what's happening with pilot programs, the debates, all current as of, well, today, mid-April 2025.
And we'll look at how it connects to other big news and even touch on Andrew Yang, a name pretty much synonymous with UBI for many.
Absolutely. We've pulled together a whole stack of reports, summaries, trying to get a clear picture of how this is all evolving, because it moves fast.
Our mission really is just to pull out the core pieces, connect the dots for you, help make sense of it all.
So, yeah, we'll hit the key findings, what it all might mean, maybe some surprising bits too.
We'll keep it engaging, easy to follow. Okay, let's dive in. Universal basic income in action. Where do we start?
Well, the best place is probably the real-world experiments, what they're actually showing us. So, take Germany. They just wrapped up a long-term study. And the big takeaway, it seemed to boost happiness, mental well-being, without a major drop in how much people worked, which, hits that common worry head on.
The whole social hammock idea.
Yeah.
That people will just stop working.
Exactly that. This study suggests, maybe, that reduced financial stress actually lets people invest in themselves, maybe become more stable or productive, not less.
That's a significant counterpoint, because that assumption is a huge hurdle for UBI.
It really is. And it's not isolated. Look at the UK studies there suggest a well-designed UBI could actually cut overall benefit costs, reduce poverty, and maybe even give the economy a boost by providing sort of a more stable floor.
So potentially more effective, maybe even more economically sound than current systems. That's the implication.
It's definitely a possibility these findings raise.
Yeah.
Now, bringing it closer to home, look at New York City. Mayoral candidate Adrienne Adams, she's proposed a pretty large guaranteed income program, specifically aimed at families experiencing homelessness. Thousands of them.
Targeting it right where the need is most acute. Makes sense.
Yeah, it recognizes that extreme financial instability, and we're seeing similar thinking elsewhere, like Cook County, Illinois.
What's happening there?
Well, they had a pilot funded federally. That funding ended, but leaders there are talking about the positive results and actively looking for ways to keep it going.
That suggests they saw real value, doesn't it, if they're trying to sustain it locally?
It does, but it also brings up the big question, how do you fund these long-term if they work? Where does the stable money come from?
Good point. California is also big on this, right?
Very active. They have programs running now for pregnant individuals, former foster youth, and they're planning another pilot specifically for older adults who are already on means-tested benefits. So again, tailored approaches.
Different groups, different vulnerabilities. It's interesting.
And sometimes the impact is clear even on a smaller scale. Santa Fe Community College had a program, $400 a month for low-income student parents.
Okay.
The feedback. Participants saying it was, and I quote, helpful in every way. That kind of direct testimony is powerful.
Really shows the immediate difference it can make, that stability.
Absolutely. Or look at Brookline, Massachusetts. Their housing authority is turning its self-sufficiency program into something broader, the Resident Opportunity Initiative. Part of that, direct monthly payments.
Empowering people to build more security themselves.
That's the idea, providing that foundation. And the scale can get quite large. LA Mayor Garcetti proposed $24 million for a pilot.
Wow.
Yeah, $1,000 a month for a year going to 2,000 of the poorest households. That's a serious test in a major city.
Definitely a significant investment. But okay, we have to look at the other side too. What are the downsides, the criticisms people raise?
Absolutely crucial. And there is research. Experiments in Texas and Illinois, for instance, did suggest some people worked fewer hours. And their overall income, not counting the UBI payments, sometimes went down. They seemed to choose more leisure time.
So that social hammock concern isn't entirely dismissed by the data, then?
No, these studies give it some weight. And a University of Chicago study also found some recipients prioritized leisure.
But is more leisure always bad? Couldn't that also mean better quality of life, less stress? Things that don't show up in just work hours.
That's the counterargument exactly. How do you measure overall well-being? It's complex. Then you have think tanks like the Cato Institute.
What's their take?
Cost. They estimate a U.S.-wide UBI would cost trillions annually. Trillions.
Wow.
Their point is you'd need massive cuts to other programs or huge tax hikes. It highlights the sheer financial challenge of going nationwide.
Right. Feasibility is a massive question mark.
And one more Stanford study, it raised the possibility of reduced motivation for high-skilled careers. Though, interestingly, they also noted potential mental health benefits.
Oh, complex trade-offs again.
Yeah.
Different effects on different groups.
Seems that way. Which makes you think about the bigger picture, societally. You know, it's funny, UBI feels very current, very future of work.
Yeah.
But it's not actually new. People might be surprised who supported the idea historically. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about guaranteed income.
Yeah.
Richard Nixon, even.
Nixon. Really?
Yeah.
That is surprising. Important context.
Yeah, shows the idea has roots. And
yeah.
speaking of context, for people really wanting to track this, the Basic Income Earth Network, BN, they have their big conference in D.C. this June 2025.
Okay, good to know. A key event for the latest thinking.
For sure. And even the UN is weighing in. A recent report framed UBI as a tool for their sustainable development goals,
How so?
arguing it could cut inequality, maybe even boost creativity and innovation, seeing it as a global policy tool, not just domestic welfare.
That definitely broadens the scope. So, okay, that's the UN. What else is happening internationally?
Well, Canada's parliamentary budget officer put out a report. They estimate UBI could cut poverty there significantly, maybe by 40%.
40%? That's huge.
Huge impact, yeah. But again, the cost. Estimated around $107 billion Canadian for 2025. So that trade-off is always there.
The potential versus the price tag. Always the core tension. What about other places?
India's debating replacing food subsidies with direct cash, a shift towards more direct income support. Brazil expanded its Bolsa Familia program, direct cash to low-income families. Some call it UBI Light. Different approaches, same underlying idea of direct support.
Reflecting different national contexts, I guess. Any individual stories that stand out?
There's an artist pilot in Ireland. One participant, Eleanor O'Donovan, she spoke about how the payments let her dedicate more time to her actual art.
So supporting creative work, cultural contributions.
Potentially, yeah. And in Kenya, there's a massive 12-year trial running right now. Studying the long-term effects on poverty, the data from that will be incredibly valuable.
12 years. That's serious long-term research.
It is. And Wales has a pilot for young people leaving the care system. Early findings, they report feeling more control over the future. That sense of empowerment seems key.
So a really mixed bag globally. Promising signs, big questions remain, especially about scale and funding. Okay, let's pivot slightly. Andrew Yang, he brought UBI into the mainstream for a lot of people. What's he focusing on now?
Well, as of today, April 16th, 2025, there aren't major new UBI policy announcements directly from him that we found in the sources, but he's definitely active in related areas.
Okay, like what?
Interestingly, he directed a reimagining of the film The Wedding Banquet, stars Bo and Yang.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it explores themes like community, identity, roots, not directly UBI, but you could argue it connects to that broader interest in societal well-being that often underpins UBI support.
A different kind of engagement. What about politics? His thoughts on where things stand.
He's still talking about ranked choice voting, reflecting on how it played out in NYC, his own run included.
Right.
He seems hopeful it can push candidates toward building broader support, finding more consensus, making politics maybe a bit less polarized.
Which is a key argument for ranked choice, isn't it?
It is, and he connects that to third parties. He thinks reforms, like ranked choice, maybe nonpartisan primaries too, could open doors for independence for groups like his Forward Party.
And the Forward Party still has UBI as a core policy.
Oh yeah, absolutely central. Yang's argument, and the parties, is basically that the two main parties aren't really grappling with automation's potential impact on jobs. And they see UBI as, well, essential preparation for that future, a way to build resilience.
So it's still fundamental to his vision. And he has his podcast too, right?
He does, still using that platform to talk about big issues. AI's impact on jobs comes up a lot, obviously. Dynamics in the Democratic Party, economic growth strategies. It all connects back to the UBI conversation in various ways.
And media appearances?
Yeah, he was on The Daily Show recently. Talked about UBI, but also about AI governance, highlighting how those two issues are increasingly linked.
Okay, so no big new UBI push from him today, but he's still very much in the conversation, advocating through the Forward Party, his podcast media. Makes sense. All right, let's zoom back out. General news. What else is happening that connects, maybe indirectly, to this whole UBI discussion?
It's striking, actually. You see things like Amazon using more AI, expanding cashierless stores.
Right, the automation trend.
Yeah, and that directly feeds the debate. If jobs are disappearing, how do people stay afloat? It makes UBI seem less theoretical, more like a potential necessity.
And the gig economy fits in here, too.
Definitely. Unions for Uber and Lyft drivers, they're pushing for things like portable benefits, even UBI supplements.
Right.
Because gig work can be unstable, right? Algorithmic wages, lack of security. They argue a basic income floor is needed for those workers.
Makes sense. Precarious work needs a safety net. What about actual legislation in the U.S.? Any movement?
Well, Representative Ocasio-Cortez reintroduced her UBI Act, the 2025 version.
Okay.
And interestingly, it proposes funding a pilot partly through a tax 5% on profits of big companies using a lot of AI automation.
Directly linking the gains from AI to funding UBI, that's a direct approach.
It is, and it's not just one side. There's also bipartisan talk in the Senate about expanding the child tax credit.
Which isn't full UBI, but...
But it's more direct income support for families. Some see it as a step, maybe an incremental move in that direction, shows broader interest in getting cash to people.
Okay, so some movement, or at least proposals, domestically. What about the EU?
The European Parliament actually voted recently, narrowly passed a resolution to explore EU-wide UBI frameworks.
Explore. So not implement, but look into it.
Exactly. And there was pushback, strong opposition from more fiscally conservative countries like Germany, Sweden. So even where social safety nets are strong, UBI is still very much debated.
Complex dynamics everywhere. Any sort of wild cards or unique experiments popping up?
Well, Elon Musk announced a $100 million UBI pilot in Texas.
Musk? Really, what's the detail?
$1,200 a month for 2 years, select group of residents. It's raised eyebrows, naturally. Some wonder if it's tied to, like, SpaceX and long-term plans for off-world colonies where basic income might be necessary.
Huh. That's unexpected. A tech billionaire funding a UBI trial. Adds a whole new layer.
For sure. And philanthropy is getting more involved generally. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative pledged $50 million for UBI research.
Focus on what?
Specifically on mental health outcomes. How does receiving UBI affect people's mental well-being? It shows the focus is broadening beyond just economics.
Serious money going into understanding the human impact. That's significant.
Yeah.
What about public awareness, grassroots stuff?
Seeing a lot on social media. Hashtag UBI Now has been trending. People sharing personal stories, advocates pushing the message. That grassroots stuff can really shift the narrative.
Makes it less abstract, more real for people.
Yeah. And it's even bleeding into art. There have been installations, Berlin, São Paulo, trying to visualize a post-work society gets people thinking culturally, not just politically.
Creative ways to spark discussion. And we're hearing from AI experts themselves, too, right?
We are. Jeffrey Hinton, one of the sort of godfathers of AI, he's been warning again about AI causing major job losses.
And he supports UBI.
Yeah, he's voiced support for it as a necessary adaptation. Someone deep inside AI saying, we need this. That carries weight.
Definitely underscores the urgency. How does all this relate to something established, like Social Security?
Well, Social Security is a form of regular income support, right, for retirees. Average payment now is around $1,910 a month.
Okay.
It's not universal or unconditional like UBI proposals, but it serves a similar foundational security role for one group. The UBI debate often involves how it would mesh with or maybe change systems like that.
Right. How does it fit into the existing structure? Were there any recent economic policy discussions touching on this?
Today, actually, the University of Chicago's Policy School is having a discussion, not solely UBI, but these high-level economic talks. They often bring in ideas like basic income when considering resilience, equity. It's part of the ongoing debate in those circles.
Being actively analyzed by economists and policy folks, and that funding cushion just keeps coming back, doesn't it?
Always. And you have economists like Thomas Piketty suggesting things like a global robot tax.
A tax on automation.
Essentially, yeah. As AI does more work humans used to do, tax the economic gains from that automation to help fund a basic income for everyone. It's a way to potentially share the productivity gains.
Robot tax.
Right.
That's a big idea. Okay, one last connection. Climate change. Seems unrelated, but is there a link?
Surprisingly, maybe. The IPCC, the big international climate change panel, their reports have suggested UBI could actually help with green transitions.
Wow.
By providing income security, it could cushion the blow for workers in, say, fossil fuel industries that need to phase out. Makes it easier for people to retrain, move to green jobs without facing immediate hardship.
So UBI as a tool to make the green transition smoother and more just. That's quite a link.
Yeah, it adds another dimension to the whole thing.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground. As we wrap up this deep dive, what are the main takeaways?
Well, clearly UBI isn't just one thing. It's this whole landscape of experiments, pilots, intense debates. We're seeing potential upsides, better well-being, less poverty, but also real concerns cost, work incentives. And crucially, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's tied into automation, AI, the future of work, even climate change. It's part of these massive shifts we're navigating.
Yeah, and so things really jumped out. That German study on happiness, not just work hours, the sheer scale of potential poverty reduction Canada looked at,
Yeah.
and just the variety of local U.S. pilots, lots of innovation there.
Absolutely. It's complex, full of potential, full of challenges. Hopefully this has given everyone a clearer map of where things stand right now.
We hope so too.
Yeah.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. Considering all this, the evidence, the arguments, the changing world, what kind of future do you see? With UBI? Without it? What are the biggest obstacles you see and what arguments for it resonate most?
Yeah, it's definitely a conversation that's only just getting started, really.